Tell me a little bit about who you are and why you want to run for Chuck Grassley's spot in the Senate.
Well, my name is Michael Franken. I am from Sioux County, Iowa, straight north of here, about 50 miles. I was born and raised there. My ancestors were homesteaders, and I joined the Navy when I was attending Morningside College, and that started a different life for me. I view myself quite qualified as a senator, having spent almost 4 decades in the military, but numerous tours of duty on Capitol Hill, and for the viewing audience, a lot of time with every service imaginable, including the interagency across in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. And my desire is, I see a country that needs to be a more fair society. And what really struck a chord is what happened on the 6th of January. I view that as an offense to the nation. And having defended democracy external to the country for almost 4 decades, this is now a turn to the internal defense. And I think I would be a noble character to do such matters.
So what do you think you can bring to Washington that maybe Senator Grassley has not brought to Washington in his decades of service there, or even, the other Democratic, candidates? Sure. What do you think you bring to the table that's maybe different from somebody else?
Well, I think I would, rather than what I bring to Washington, what I would bring to Iowa. So I would use the pulpit of Washington, D.C. to rejuvenate Iowa. And I think what we've lacked here is an inventiveness, a vigor. I was just thinking on the way here of the many other elected officials through the millennia who have libraries, roads, institutions named after them. And I can't think of anything for Chuck Grassley. So he's been in elected office for as long as I've been alive, almost. And I just wonder, maybe that is indicative of what he's lacked to bring to Iowa. So in my case, I'm very rural, so I am current with what it means to be rural. Having served internationally, I think I know what Iowa can do in an international trade perspective. Infrastructure is one of my strengths. I see with the Build Back Better plan, always infrastructure spanning all aspects of society, from better education to improved child care, housing, etc., bringing jobs to the state of Iowa that are well-paying from day one and ultimately build people up so that a boost from the government across the board lets people grab that first rung of the ladder, and from there on out, they climb that ladder to achieve their godly habit, their godly potential.
Farming is a big part of Iowa life. I mean, you think of the big cities, Des Moines, Quad Cities, Sioux City, but really the farmers and agriculture really build Iowa. Right. What can you do for those? Because they've been struggling the last, several years with drought, with COVID. What do you hope to see change should you be elected?
Well, every farmer wants, they work with a lot of variables in life, weather, et cetera, markets, et cetera. We should take out the variables as much as we can. Willy-nilly canceling international trade agreements, not a good idea. So standardize, get some expectation, and then have a draw on their products so that it's identifiable, so that the futures markets don't go up and down radically. Ultimately, that a farmer can achieve a living, and a better living if he or she is a good farmer. And then we also ought to look at alternate means of farming. I mean, rather than just a 2-crop, row cropping type of environment that we have in Iowa, we should expand that. And now's the time to do that. Minimize or lessen the number of acres that are planted in beans and corn and expand it to other crop types. We have an opportunity in Iowa with an electrical grid that's based on wind and solar and other means of regenerative, sustainable power, to have a very inexpensive base. And in a carbon-taxed environment, Iowa's going to be in the catbird seat. We have a great opportunity to be a draw for industry, to be a draw for industry that requires a lot of power. And with the education that's the basis of Iowa, I have a great potential, I think, for this state.
Iowa's 2 Senate seats have been red for quite some time. Why do you think now is a good time for maybe that to flip and to bring a Democratic perspective to Iowa and to the U.S. Senate?
Well, quality of life is very important, and if you look at the polling figures of America, those who polls to do very well from a social perspective, to build people up, it's almost exclusively Democrats. And I think from a quality of life, that's what people want in the state of Iowa. And if we build up the quality of life in Iowa, I think we will have less of a problem in getting workers. Every industry I speak with has a dearth of workers. We need to have a better quality of life in the state of Iowa to bring people here.
Should you get elected to the Senate, we're still going to be in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, we don't know when this is going to end. There's the big vaccine debate. What do you hope to see come out of Washington in the next year or so, or even 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, to get America out of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, individual responsibility looms large. I come from a business where all for one and one for all is a common phrase. It's just understood, where you fight in the military, you serve extensively in the military, not so much for yourself, but for the people, those around you. And it's incumbent upon Americans, citizens, visitors, to do what they can to minimize COVID. We should not have war on science in America. I've been told as I run for office that you should hide the fact that you went to these schools and these universities, these prestigious universities. Because why? There's a negative connotation to education. When did that happen? It's ridiculous. I'm a farm kid from Iowa. Why is that a negative? I think that we need to reverse our thought process so that we try to minimize the pandemic, get vaccinated, do what the government wants you to do, and ultimately we'll have fewer variations, fewer deaths, fewer full CCUs throughout the state, and we can get past this. I've got experience in Ebola in Africa. You didn't see people ignoring Ebola, principally because it's much more terminal. And so people think they can just kind of gloss over. We need to pay attention to this. And if you're healthy enough to get a vaccination, by George, get it done.
So you've touched on this a little bit, but how does your military experience and that decade plus of time in the military maybe give you a leg up on other candidates?
Well, we don't speak of leadership as much as we should. So fortunately, starting at the age of 19 at Supreme Packing Company, being in charge of repair work in the rendering plant when I was in college at Morningside, and to being on my first ship in the early 80s in charge of 43 people, leadership was always core to your achievement. I retired as a 3-star admiral, which makes me the senior military person in the state of Iowa, probably South Dakota, probably Nebraska as well. And leadership really is the reason why that happens. Pure, good, ecumenical, altruistic, servant leaders. So if you're going to be a leader in the Senate, you should start with experience. I have lots of experience. We're having run large organizations, 4,000 individuals, pushed multi-billion-dollar bills through Congress, the authorization and the appropriation side. In both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat, didn't matter. In the uniform, it didn't matter. We all had a job to do. Also, I worked in the interagency frequently. I was very fortunate. I worked for a senator on his staff, on his personal staff. I was the first military person to do so on the Hill. And I'm an oddity from that, like a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. I was a farm kid from Iowa, went to the University of Nebraska for crying out loud. But you have these opportunities in life. And ultimately, I was President Obama's chief of legislative affairs for the department. And I worked across both sides of the aisle seamlessly. And I think that's what we need to do. People don't like the problems we have on the Hill, the ineffectiveness, the obfuscation, the name calling, the nonsense which is going on. So I think I can clear through that. And maybe people will take notice since I'm retired admiral.
Anything else you want to add in that I didn't ask you today?
I am ever so hopeful that I'll be able to help Siouxland a lot. I can't remember the last elected leader we've had from Sioux City, who was a senator for the state, and I don't think there was. And ultimately, I believe I would breathe some life into into the economy here. And we should take advantage of the fact that we are on the corner of 3 states, which means we have the attention of 6 senators and 3 representatives. And I don't hear enough of that when we try to bring business into Siouxland. And this is something I would emphasize and work on very, very much, especially the options on the rivers, the communication and transportation options, broadband, inexpensive energy, clean energy that breathes life into this place.
Perfect. I think that's all I have for you. Thank you so
ma'am.
much.
Thank you, Kate.